Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Death in the Trenches, The Great War, 1914 to 1918. This is a game designed by Ben Madison and Wes Ernie and published by Compass Games. This is the latest World War I game coming out from Compass, and they've got a growing stable of World War I games. I'm not sure if anybody else is putting out the number of World War I games that they are. So if you're a World War I fan, you're going to be digging that. This is the second edition. The first one came out in 2005, and there have been some additions made to this game to expand it out a bit. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. Death in the Trenches is a strategic level World War I game covering the entire war in all theaters on an army level with divisional formations handled on an off-map display that minimizes map clutter. The game relies on simple mechanics that eliminate production bean counting and complicated combat results tables. Designed with the narrative gamer in mind, its more than 500 random events draw you into the global nightmare of 1914 to 1918, while its pulse system of alternating player moves ensures very little downtime for the non-phasing player. An exciting combat system where you choose your own level of aggressiveness gives you a real feel for World War I, and you'll find yourself piling in everything but the kitchen sink. More artillery, more planes, more generals, in order to make one big push for that elusive victory. This Charles S. Roberts award-winning World War I classic is back in an impressive, brand new, redesigned second edition from Compass Games. And you can see here at the top an example of the counters and the map. And it is for 1 to 2 players, unit scale mostly armies and corps, map scale 1 hex is 80 miles, the time scale 1 turn is 3 months. It is rated as medium complexity. For playing time, the campaign is around 8 hours, solitaire suitability is high, and the contents, it says 520 counters and one 34 by 22 inch map, but no other listing here for rules or anything like that. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. This is a tight fit. We have our bag of dice, sealed for freshness, baggies, rule book, events book, the battle board and other player aids, counter sheet. We have several counter sheets, 4 of them. The Colonial Campaigns board, and our mounted map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the mounted map that comes with the game. It has a kind of unique palette to it, fairly dark, muted, giving it that old-timey World War I feel. The top, we start off with Great Britain that goes across through the Scandinavian countries down into Europe, and then all the way across to Russia, Ukraine, down into the Black Sea, the Mediterranean. Here we have Ottoman Turkey, Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and then North and South Persia, across through Mesopotamia, and then the Arabian Desert, Egypt, and Libya. There's also a connector from North Persia into North India down here at the bottom. We have the turn record track here, spots for Beachhead A and Beachhead B, Air and Naval Supremacy boxes, Minor Forces Reserve box, the Units Out of Play box, Gas Effectiveness, and U.S. Reinforcements box here, as well as a Winter Palace at the middle right. Next, we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. First up, we have the battle board, which gives us the firepower hits display, unit position display, and the battle procedure. Next, we have the attacker battle chart. Then we have special events for the Entente powers, as well as a special event chart for the Central powers. Then we have the Entente powers omnibus markers track, and then the omnibus markers track for the Central powers. Lastly, we have the Colonial Campaign maps, which are really nice. This is on real thick chipboard, and it's going to give you all of the colonial areas in the game. Next, we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. These are nicely cut pre-rounded counters, so easier to get them out of the tree and onto the table. At the top, we have the German forces. Below that, we have Austria-Hungary, as well as some administrative counters at the bottom. On the next sheet, we have a mix of nationalities. At the top, we have Britain, India, Armenia, Romania, Russia, French, and Serbia on the right. And the mix continues on the next sheet: Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, Italy, United States, a mix of surface fleets, Swedish units, as well as Greek units, and then some administrative counters along the bottom. And on the final counter sheet, we have the remainder of the administrative counters for the game. Next, we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 28-page full-color rulebook. Inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents, and we start off with the components, the map, the bumper stickers, which are the little notes on the counters that will tell you what the countries are. And they have the breakdown of the abbreviations here. Sequence of play, random events, reinforcements, and then we get into, again, they talk about the country abbreviations, which is going to be really important to know and which the counters are when you first get the game. Once you get to know the colors, you're going to know which one's which, as well as knowing the flags as well. But that text is pretty small, so you're going to have to pay close attention to that bumper sticker in the top left corner of the counter. Then we get to Dutch free trade, U.S. reinforcements, reduced Russian reinforcements, morale events, tactical operation events, and then special events here explained to you. Great powers, small powers, and the minor forces are also explained to you here. Giving you a breakdown of those here on this next page. Get into army logistics, stacking, building your armies, reserves, control of a hex, movement, a movement procedure with an illustrated example at the top, weather, desert, and alpine, Near East commitments, Near East restrictions, strategic redeployment, amphibious invasions, general withdrawal, Russian rail gauge, which is an optional role, and then battle. We get into the combat here on page 11. On the next page goes through the battle procedure. Step 1 over the top. Step 2 is defender response. Then you have trenches, clear hexes, non-clear hexes. Spearhead target sector is step 3. Step 4 is your firepower. Step 5 is allocations. Then we have step 6, which is dice selection. Step 7, dice rolled. And then step 8, defender hits. Step 9, attacker hits. And step 10, inflict damage. Then we get to step 11, trench integrity. And step 12, result, who won the battle. And we have obliteration, retreats, siege, special weapons and tactics, air supremacy, the Red Baron makes an appearance, fleet moves, political effects on naval supremacy, naval warfare. Then we have forts, French army mutiny, poison gas, the Hindenburg line, German siege gun, fog of war, which is also an optional role. Then we get to supply, your supply sources, supply lines, sea supply, and then out of supply effects. National restrictions, colonial warfare, which is that really nice chipboard map we were looking at before. It explains to you here how that's used, units in colonial service, the Boer revolt, surrender, surrender checks, surrender effects. Then we get into Russia, Russia collapse conditions, Russia collapse effects, Arabs or Armenians, neutral countries, general rules for those, predisposed neutrals, and the invading neutrals, a listing of all of the neutral countries there, and that will do it, bringing us to the back of the rules where we have the sequence of play. And lastly, we'll take a look at the events book. This is a 20-page full-color book. Start off with the table of contents, how to win. Then we have the game setup. It explains to you how to set up all the markers and the counters on the game. We have the setup charts for all of the sides in the game. Then the hex catalog. And then we get to the event chit charts. And this is something that we're not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm just going to kind of flip through so you can see how many events there are. And there are a lot of events. These are going to really drive the game and create that narrative that they're shooting for, both Wes and Ben, in giving a real interesting narrative World War I experience. And we go all the way to the end with the last event chart. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Death in the Trenches, The Great War, 1914 to 1918. This is a game designed by Ben Madison and Wes Ernie and published by Compass Games. If you're a World War I fan, you got to be loving the number of titles Compass Games keeps coming out with. They have just really built their stable of World War I titles out quite a bit. This one I've never played, and I'm curious to see how it plays out, especially due to the fact that there are so many events that take place in the game. That's going to create quite the narrative. And the combat system looks like it's going to be a lot of dice involved, as you can see here with this bag of dice. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out. And the one thing about random events, it does allow for really cool narrative to unfold. At the same time, it can kind of take things off the rails sometimes. So I'm wondering how ahistorical things can be at times. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm curious to see how it's all going to play out. And I hope it's as fun as it looks like it's going to be with all of those random events to create that unique narrative every time you play. So I'm looking forward to getting this one on the table, checking it out, and seeing how it all flows. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.